Oh man, Oblivion, never change. What is that? What is happening to your pants? Yeah, that's not frame gen. That is Oblivion right there. All right, so today is another day here in the studio at Microcenter, and I'm gonna do another PC build. Now, this PC build, I just got all the parts in, and this one's gonna be pretty straightforward. I have a 9700X right over here, and I'm gonna pair that off with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5070. And I just want to talk about video games today because I have been playing Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered nonstop since it came out last week. I have been having so much fun with this game. I feel like I'm reliving all of my high school gaming through this game, and it's been so much fun. So I wanted to build a PC. Everything here all together, all in, about $1,600 or so, at least at the time of recording this video, and everything you can get at your local Micro Center. And I wanted to build a PC that would be good for gaming, obviously, like Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered. I'm gonna move my cart out the way over here. So everything here, like I said, it all comes to about $1,600 or so, but this is gonna be a pretty awesome gaming PC all in all. It's pretty straightforward. I have a 2 terabyte SSD from SK Hynix. This is a really good gold P31 SSD, so this is gonna be nice and fast. I also have 32 gigabytes of RAM from Crucial, and then obviously 9700X and the 5070. Now, I'm just gonna use a simple tower cooler to keep this 9700X cool because frankly, it's not gonna run that hot. This is actually more than enough, so I have a Cooler Master Hyper 212. And for motherboard, I'm using the Asus TUF B850 Plus Wi-Fi motherboard. And it's a pretty good motherboard. It has everything we need. Wi-Fi 7, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, also has Gen 5 SSD support, so that's PCIe 5, so you can use some of those newer SSDs that you have in stock, like that Samsung 9100 Pro. But for today, I have a Gen 4 SSD and 2 terabyte, more than enough for what we need. Now for power supply, I went with Superflower 750 watt over here. So this is a modular power supply. This is gonna give us more than enough headroom for this whole system here. And then for the case, we have the Corsair Frame 4000. This is gonna be pretty cool. I'm actually looking forward to using this one because I thought it looked pretty nice. So let's get started and let's start building. So the fun part when building a new PC is always opening all of the boxes. And there's so many boxes to open. About 8 to be exact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I got the number right. All right, so I got everything open and we are all set to start building. This is the B850 Plus Wi-Fi motherboard, Asus TUF. And I gotta say, pretty nice looking board. I actually like the TUF style. It's very simple. It's not too crazy with RGB or anything. And one thing about this build, minimal RGB. So on our Micro Center YouTube, we posted a survey recently and we were asking you guys, what do you like in your build? Do you like full RGB, some RGB, no RGB? And actually the answer, or at least the one with the most amount of votes, was some RGB, which I thought was interesting because I really thought it would be either or, either full RGB or no RGB. But some of you guys just like some RGB. So that's actually what we're doing with this build. And the RGB is gonna be on this Corsair case with those front fans. No RGB on the cooler here. And let's get our CPU installed. So I went with the AMD Ryzen 7 9700X because I actually like the CPU a lot. This is a low power draw CPU and it doesn't run that hot, but it is actually really good for gaming, believe it or not. Yes, obviously you have your 9800X3D, your 9900X3D, your 9950X3D CPUs, which are the king of gaming. But 9700X is actually a really good CPU for gaming, especially if you want to get the price down just a little bit. So CPU's installed, and I'm just going to get our RAM. Now, 32 gigs, I really think is the way to go. 16 you can definitely get by, but 32 I think is just the way to go with these. We've got our A2B2, slot them right in. Cool. And what I like about this Asus TUF is that you have, obviously everything is kind of like gray, black. That's kind of the styling for this. So you have the alternating gray and black for the RAM slots here. So A2, B2 are gray. So you know those are the first ones to go with. So if you're a first-time builder, it's just kind of nice. Those little details make it stand out, make it a little bit more obvious, make things a little bit easier for you. So I mentioned before Elder Scrolls Oblivion, right? First of all, that is one of my favorite games. I first got introduced to Elder Scrolls when my friend got Oblivion for the Xbox 360. I had never played Morrowind at that point, and PC gaming I didn't really start getting into until like 2005, 2006-ish. So when Oblivion came out, I played it on 360 for a little bit, and then it was on PC. Oh, it was game over for me. I sunk so much time into that game. And now that the remaster is out, and they just shadow dropped it too, oh man. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun replaying it. And visually, it looks really, really nice. If anything, it's making me excited for Elder Scrolls 6. I'm curious if any of the changes that they implemented in the Oblivion Remaster will make its way into Elder Scrolls 6, because that'll be pretty cool. SSD is installed, so that's all set. Our hardware for the cooler, I think it's pretty straightforward. We just put this bracket on. I haven't done a 2-on-2 in a minute, so let me take a look. All right, cool. I'm gonna get the cooler all set up. Let me just get the pre-installed hardware off the motherboard. Now I mentioned 9700X, right? You know, it's a good budget CPU. It's actually pretty good for gaming. I mean, obviously, if you look at the benchmarks, yes, sure, some of the other CPUs in the Ryzen lineup are way, way, way better for gaming, like a 9800X 3D. Okay. So I'm gonna get the hardware on here. So the 9700X, I think, is actually a really good CPU, and it could be a really good CPU for gaming in a budget kind of build, because the price is pretty good, right? Obviously, it's not an X3D CPU, but 8 cores, 16 threads, that's not something you should ignore. And, you know, base TDP of what, 65 watts? It runs pretty cool, which is why I also feel pretty confident using the single tower cooler. And that's another thing to take into consideration, because I don't have to go crazy with a cooler for this. I can save a couple of bucks on my cooler, because Hyper 212, it's a pretty affordable budget cooler, single tower, and this is gonna work really, really well. It's gonna keep this nice and cool. Hardware goes on pretty easily. Just put the brackets right onto the base. Make sure you pull this off first. That's a really important step. And I'll get our thermal paste. I'm just gonna do a big dot, just right in the center. That's more than enough. I'm just gonna be jumping topics back and forth because Elder Scrolls Oblivion has just been on my mind all week, and it's hard for me to not talk about. It's just so exciting for me. You know, you have to keep in mind, it's been 20 years since Oblivion first came out, and Skyrim came out. Skyrim was what, 2011? And then we had how many different iterations of Skyrim between 2011 and today, 2025? I mean, so many. You know, they ported it for basically every console. You know, you have the very special edition, all the other editions, VR versions, etc., etc. And to be perfectly honest, I've also done my fair share of rebuying Bethesda games. So the fact that we finally get a serious remaster of Oblivion is so exciting. And actually, I'm really hoping we get a remaster of Fallout 3. I'm really, really hoping we get a remaster of Fallout New Vegas, but I think that's not as likely because that's an Obsidian, technically, title, so I don't know if that's gonna be made, but I would love to see a Fallout New Vegas remake in the style of the Oblivion remake. All right, so I got the 4000D from Corsair over here. Just gonna get this glass panel off. There we go. I think one thing that's kind of cool, again, about Oblivion, I'm just going to keep talking about it, is that I think a lot of people are experiencing this game for the first time, people that only know Skyrim. And I like Skyrim. I do. I like it. I don't love Skyrim. I like Oblivion way, way more. I think the quests are better. I think the magic system in Oblivion is better. I think the leveling is broken in Oblivion, but I think that's what makes it better because it's so ridiculous. You know, I had a character way back when, Sneaky Archer, obviously, in Oblivion, who the acrobatics was so high that you could jump to the second floor of a building, or I can jump onto the roof of a building just in a single leap. And that's just, you know, with high athletics, because once you start getting into like some of the crazy restoration spells that you can do to like boost all of those things. I saw a guy posted a video the other day. He had a Khajiit go from the blade's base, and he was literally able to just leap right off and run straight to the Imperial City, which is just the funniest thing to me. And I think, yeah, the leveling is a little broken in Oblivion, but I think that's what makes it great, because it's just so silly. And I think that was something that was lost in Skyrim. I feel like Skyrim was just so serious, and Oblivion was so silly by comparison. All right, let's see. Let's get all of our motherboard screws out. And another detail, and this is just me personally, I like the music in Oblivion more than Skyrim. I wasn't crazy about the hoo-ha of the Skyrim soundtrack. It got to be a little much. And making sure I got all the plastic off. Yeah, we're good. So let's go right in. So this case has 3 intake fans, and I didn't get any additional fans. I just kept it pretty simple. But in terms of airflow, I think we're going to be pretty good. You can add an additional fan if you really, really want. Cool. Easy fit. So one cool thing about working at Microcenter is obviously getting to play with all of this different tech all the time, right? Like I feel like I live in a candy store sometimes. And it's been pretty nice. You know, you get to try out all kinds of different things. I'm definitely curious in trying out a couple of specific things. So lately I've been gaming at home and using my Steam Deck, but using remote play to play on my couch. So I just stream on my local network onto the Steam Deck. And it's one of those settings, or it's one of those features that I kind of just ignored when I first got my Steam Deck because I wasn't really interested. I was more interested in running everything locally, but obviously Steam Deck has been out for 3 years-ish now, and I think it's starting to show its age. So for example, I tried to get the Oblivion Remastered to run on my Steam Deck because I was really curious, right? I mean, it was 120 gigabytes to start off with, so that took a minute to download, but then getting it on there and trying to get it run locally, it just was not working very well. It was really having a hard time. Now, there's some people on Reddit who claimed that they were getting a playable experience at about 40 to 45 frames. And while maybe I believe them, I also kind of don't believe them. I mean, let's be honest. The hardware's good for what it is, right? And I think it's okay to admit that it's mobile hardware. It has limitations, and it's not going to run all of the latest and greatest AAA games right off the bat anymore. You're able to get away with some games when it first came out, but now I think we're kind of pushing it, especially when you consider Oblivion Remastered. You know, it has all of the graphics being done in Unreal Engine 5, which in of itself is a really hefty engine. So running that in mobile hardware. Now you could do it maybe on the Zotac Zone, Legion Go. We have those available at Microcenter, and we have a Zotac Zone here. I actually really want to try with some of these games. I just haven't had time to mess around with it, but I feel like that one can handle it a little bit better. Though I will say one thing I am hoping for is seeing SteamOS on more handheld devices. I know that they have a Legion S coming out with SteamOS. I would love to see the Zotac Zone with SteamOS because that just seems like it's made for SteamOS, especially since it has those little pads on it. I forget the name of it, the track pads. There we go. So I've wrapped the cable for the fan kind of around itself and then just plugged it right into the fan header over here. So that's a pretty easy one. That's another thing I like about these single tower coolers. They're just easier to deal with because they're smaller, so they're easier to mount. It's usually just a single fan, easier to cable manage. So from that 9700X, I mean, all of these other things that are branching out from that decision are just making my life kind of easy in the build process. So that's kind of nice. All right, motherboard's in. Let's get some cables run. Since we have a modular power supply, I got tons of space up there so I can reach. I'm gonna plug in the EPS connectors for the CPU. This is the CPU power. Plug those in. Anyway, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but the point being is that I've been playing, remote on my Steam Deck a lot lately, and I really like it. It's actually a really good experience. I think you definitely have to tweak some of your network settings just to get it just right. But running it off of my desktop remotely, visually, it's just a much better experience. So I've actually been using my Steam Deck like that a lot. I've been playing remote play with Valheim. Valheim you can run locally on the Steam Deck, but it just doesn't run great. And playing it remote off of my desktop, it's been so much nicer because it's just nicer just to get better fidelity, a better frame rate. I'm getting a full 60 FPS on there and it just looks a lot nicer. And I have no bandwidth issues. You can throttle your bandwidth if you need to. I think I set the quality to like 50 megabits per second or something like that, which streaming at the native res of the screen on the Steam Deck actually looks really nice. But playing Oblivion that way on my couch has been really, really great. Obviously, I prefer playing it at my desktop, keyboard, mouse. I have a 1440, 144 hertz monitor that I use, but these days, I really just like playing on my couch. And playing with a handheld is just comfort, All right, so motherboard power is in there. Just kind of getting all the cables routed. Let me get my turntable. It's gonna make things a little bit easier for me. All right, got my turntable. That's gonna make things a lot easier. So when it comes to gaming, especially these days, there's so many different options available to you now, right? I feel like PC gaming has gotten so flexible from where it was back in my day when I played the original Oblivion back in 2006. Things were very different, Like I really just had to sit at my desk if I wanted to play Elder Scrolls and that was the only way I could really experience it. Now, I went off on a tangent about my Steam Deck because now I can stream it over my network to my Steam Deck and I can play it in any room in my house. I can pick it up and go if I really wanted to, although it's not gonna run great in my Steam Deck, but I really feel like if I try it with the Legion Go, with that Z1 Extreme, or maybe even that Zotac Zone, it might run really well. So I gotta try that out. But the point being is that there's so many different options now. And even a PC like this, I think this is gonna run really well. I'm definitely gonna give it a test run at the end of this video, just to see how it performs on this hardware. I know that people have been talking about performance a lot, but also, I think the developers just need a minute to maybe iron out some of the other kinks, and I think performance might get a little bit better. But again, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out, right? So I've got a fan, and I've got an LED header. This is going to be for those front fans. I don't know why these LEDs are so weird to plug in. There it is. Yeah, if you're ever struggling to plug in those 3-pin LED headers, just know you're not alone. They are a little bit difficult. Also, a unified front panel connector on this case. That is really nice. I always appreciate a unified front panel connector. Also, one thing that they did for all of the case cables, there's a little shroud, like kind of cable cover on this. Nice little detail. I kind of like this. Makes it look a little bit less messy because it all emerges from here together instead of sort of just all of them splayed out through the case. So I appreciate that. That's actually kind of nice. All right, so our USB is on the side here. And if you haven't noticed, having a turntable for building a PC on just makes your life so much easier, especially when it comes to cable management. So that's something to look into if you're looking to build your PC. Look into a turntable. You can get a cheap one and it'll work just fine. Let me just pull this up a little bit so I can get this to run up. And the front USB-C and then our front audio. Just plugs on the bottom left. Not bad. We're actually on the tail end of this build. Not bad at all. I mean, really all that's left, power supply. I'm gonna get this installed, get the cables plugged in, which I can actually just do now. And then get the GPU in and we can get this set up and start playing some games. And so we always like to hear from you guys, you know, what do you want to see when it comes to content, when it comes to videos about PCs? What would you guys like to see? We do a lot of these build videos, which for me is a lot of fun, but what would you be interested in seeing? Do you want to see more games? Do you want to see more builds? You know, we like to do creator stuff sometimes because I'm big on video editing, so I love talking about video editing. Is that something that you like to see? Or are there some other topics that maybe we're not hitting that we should be hitting? I mean, let me know in the comments below. And I definitely like doing games when possible. I mean, the nice thing is there's always new games coming out, so there's always something to talk about. There's always something to play. Our GPU cable. So this is 2 8-pins going to 1 cable here. Now this is ATX 3.1, so this should be 12 volt 2x6, correct? ATX 3.1 certified, yeah. Okay, so this should be the 12 volt 2x6, not the 12 volt high power. So it's 2 8-pins that are going to the 12 volt 2x6 on this one, but more than enough power for this 5070, so we'll be pretty good. Now, back on Oblivion, because I'm just gonna keep talking about it. So, my first character out of the box, or my first character out of the sewer gate is, I just went Sneaky Archer. I just went Imperial, just to kind of like get started. I might re-roll as a Khajiit, because Khajiit's kind of fun to play with, but I just went with an Imperial Sneaky Archer. Sneaky Archer, some people say is OP. I say it's the most fun that you can have in an Elder Scrolls game. Battle Mage, yeah, that might be fun. I do like magic. I do like using magic as well as doing kind of Sneaky Archer. And then sometimes I'll do Sword and Shield. I kind of like to just do all 3, to be perfectly honest, and I like to have a balanced character that can do all 3. But I definitely want to make sure their athletics is high enough to do crazy, ridiculous stuff in the game. There we go. So I've got the power supply installed. Cool, that one's all set. All right, so I have my cable for my GPU, just gonna run it up here. This has been a pretty cool, you know, over the last year, it's been a pretty cool year for RPGs in general. Obviously, I think Baldur's Gate did a lot of work to get the general population really into RPGs, and having the Oblivion Remaster come out, I think really sparked a big interest for a lot of people. You know, obviously Skyrim is really, really popular, and I feel like Skyrim is kind of like the Coca-Cola of RPGs. It's just very, It's general enough that anyone can get into it, you know, but I just don't feel like it's as bold as some other RPGs. That's just my opinion. Although one that I'm really looking forward to is Outer Worlds 2, which is coming out, I think, this year, because there's been some promo material for that, and I'm actually really excited about that one. I really like the first Outer Worlds. Frankly, Fallout New Vegas is my favorite in the Fallout series. Fallout 3, I do like. Fallout 4, to be perfectly honest, I have never had the attention span to finish that game. I just always lose interest really fast, and I don't know why. Maybe I'll revisit it again. You know, I've restarted it like 3 or 4 times, and I just always lose interest like 10, 15 hours in. But Fallout New Vegas, I can replay that over and over. And something about it, it just has this charm. And I think it's just because Obsidian made that one. And so Obsidian made Outer Worlds 2 and Outer Worlds 1. But I really enjoyed Outer Worlds. That one is a lot of fun. And, you know, some people knocked it because the main quest is not that long. I think the entire quest, like you can beat the whole game and all the side quests in like under 40 hours. It's relatively short. And a lot of people knock the game for that, for being like on the short end. That's actually my favorite thing about that game. I am a gamer in my 30s. I have a kid. I have a full-time job. I'm very, very busy, and I rarely have time to game as much as I used to. And so I really appreciate a game that has a shorter completion, right? As much as I would love to sink, you know, 1,000 hours into an RPG, I just don't have the time these days, man. So I actually really appreciate it was on the shorter side. And that one actually ran on my Steam Deck pretty fine. I was able to get that like a solid 40 FPS with the 40 Hertz mode, and it was running really, really well. All right, so I have the Zotac 5070. So 12 gigabytes of VRAM. This is gonna be a really good gaming PC. I'm actually really excited to play around with this one. I'm gonna get this one set up and get everything going, but I think this is gonna run rock solid. Let's take a look. Pull some of these cables down. I like this case. I like the design on the mesh here. I think it's kind of fun. I like this front mesh design. It's got this like raised texture on it too. That's actually kind of cool. And then you have the 3 fans. So there's some space in between. Pretty roomy case, pretty easy to build in. You know, I could fit a much, much bigger GPU, and I could go pretty crazy with the components in here, but I'm not gonna. I think this is actually a really solid build. I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, so this is the bottom cover. It goes on right over here. It's kind of interesting. It has this little opaque plastic. So you can cover it, or you can just pull it right off if you want more open airflow going into the bottom. I'm gonna leave it on for now. This just pops right back on. All right, we got the back on, and then we'll get our glass panel. Your glass panel on, and there it is. All done. It's a very easy build. A little heavy now, but I'm very happy with the way this came out. Not bad. All right, let's boot it up. Let's get this guy all set up and let's play some games. Great, so I have everything all set up. Now it's just time to get this guy to post. Here we go. Power button right over here. Like I said, I really like this case. I'm actually really into this design. It's a really nice looking tower. So, good job, Corsair. Everything's all fired up. Fans are working. There we go. I don't see the RGB on the front though. I wonder if I got that plugged in correctly. Might have to double check the plug. Because I see they're all daisy chained together over here. I'm gonna troubleshoot that just to make sure. But everything else, looking pretty good. Cool. In the BIOS screen, so computer's all good to go. Now I'm just gonna get this all set up with Windows, install a couple of games. I think you know the game that I really wanna play. So let's get going. Okay, so I got the PC all set up. Everything is good to go, and I have it here on our test bench. Multiple monitors here, and I really just wanna play Oblivion. I feel like this is an Oblivion-centric video at this point because I've just been talking about it nonstop, and I'm really just itching to play. One thing that really irks me though, I mean, the game's only been out a week. Apparently the cloud saves are tied to your OneDrive and they're not in the Steam like cloud save, so I don't have my save that I have at home. So I'm gonna have to start from scratch. That's kind of annoying. Has nothing to do with the PC that we just built, which came out really nice, by the way. And I fixed the RGB on the front. I didn't plug in the header properly. I hit it in the notch right above where the holes are in the header, or at least in the connector there, so my mistake. Got it working now, everything's running great. Got everything set up, drivers are good to go, and 3 monitors here, 1080, 1440, and 4K 120 Hertz. So I figured, let's go all out and let's go straight into 4K. Literally just booting up the game for the first time here. I have frame view open in the corner. I have to accept all the rules and regulations. Oh wait, no, it's gonna let me continue. Is it gonna let me? Oh, maybe they fixed it. I really hope they fixed it. Literally just jumping into the game right now, have not configured any of the settings at all. But one thing to call out, oh, this is just, because I copied this over from the laptop that we had, and this was just like the starting area. Oh, this is silly. So again, didn't set any of the settings yet, and obviously this is indoors. It's going to be a little bit different when we go outdoors, but average FPS, 118, 1% lows, 110. Looking pretty good. GPU, 97% utilization, but temps are looking really nice. CPU, 70 degrees. That's pretty fine. We get these guys. Hello. Wait, what character is this even? I think it's just like a random that I made. Yeah, okay. There we go. Sir Patrick Stewart doing some great voice work here. All right, let me go loot and pick up some stuff. There's a quick scripted event, and then the rats are gonna come out, and then I can get into the game. Before we go too far, let me take a look at these settings here. So obviously I have it set to 4K. This is a 4K UHD 120 Hertz screen. I turn up the FOV. It feels a little bit tight, at least the default setting, so I actually turn up the FOV a little bit. And we're set to all high across the board. Interesting. So ray trace is there, but it's off. DLSS is on, set to balance. There is frame gen. I tried this with frame gen a little bit, and I didn't find it to be very distracting. I'm gonna go for ultra. I really wanna see what we can do here. And if we take a performance hit, but I'll keep frame gen off. So those 1% lows dipped quite a bit. Now 1% lows in the 60s, average FPS 72. These older Bethesda titles, they're always kind of locked at 60 FPS. If the FPS went too high, it actually messes with the physics of the world. So anything above 60, in my opinion, for this game, I think is fine. And I'm playing 4K Ultra. I mean, I'm getting 92 frames, 82, 1% lows. Oh, I don't have any lockpicks. Let me see if I can find some lockpicks. And yeah, there we go. Now we're looking stylish. Guy doesn't have any pants. I actually really like the lockpicking in this game a lot. I know that people aren't crazy about the lockpicking here, but the lockpicking from Fallout and from Skyrim, I don't know, I found it kind of boring. The lockpicking in this, it's difficult sometimes. It's actually really challenging, but I think it's rewarding in that sense because it's challenging. And let's see, I'm gonna go straight for the best combo in the world, Sneaky Archer. But performance-wise, I mean, we're looking pretty rock solid. I mean, obviously this game's been out for a week, right? It's been pretty hyped up, and I really just wanted to use this as an excuse to sort of play a little bit. But for the PC that we put together, so a 9700X, like I said, like it's going to be a really good CPU all around. And when it comes to gaming, I don't think it's holding us back at all. I can see right now utilization on the CPU is like 34%, 68 degrees, you know, that single tower cooler, it's doing its job. And again, CPU temps like in the 60s to 70s, that is more than fine. Even the GPU itself, 68, and that's only with 3 intake fans. There's no exhaust fans on this, so I think if I added some exhaust fans to really maximize the airflow in this case, I think we would get a little boost in performance. All right, so I want to get outside of the sewers, so I'm gonna speed run this part. And you know what, I'll just take my katana leather shield and we'll just get a move on. Also, one thing I really appreciate is that they fixed the third person in Oblivion, because sometimes I like going to the third person view and playing like that, but it was always a little janky, to be perfectly honest, and now it feels like a real third person view, like it's meant to be in third person and it's not just zoomed out from a first person view. If that makes sense. Like if you've played the original and if you've tried the third person in that, you know what I'm talking about. It was always just a little weird. All right, gonna go through this door, get a couple goblins, and obviously the Emperor's gonna have some bad things happen to him, and then we can go right outside, because I really want to see what this is performing like outside, because that's where we're gonna get our big performance hit. There we go. Hello. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I got the little trap set. Just gonna breeze right through this little physics event, knock over those goblins, and we'll just keep running right through. Goblin over there, goblin over here. And let's see, let's try magic. Also, magic is so much better in this game. Fireball. Fireball. Some rats down there. Fireball. Fireball. This is great. I like playing some of the different races in Oblivion. I mean, Skyrim too, but in Oblivion specifically, I really like playing Imperial. And it's not a stats thing. Load time's pretty fast too. It's not a stats thing. It's just because the Imperial is voiced by Wes Johnson, who's like that famous voice actor who does basically all the voices in Oblivion. He's in Skyrim too, but to a lesser extent. They diversified more in Skyrim, but in Oblivion, like he did a bulk of the voices, like all the Imperial guards, like the Imperial Watch, all of those guys. And he has this really iconic voice that just fits really well with the game. And I like that the Imperial that you play, it uses his voice. So every time you take damage, huh, ha. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna pick my sign. I'm just gonna click through this. Let's be Thief. Yeah, fortify some of my abilities. With some of the other signs, like I just, you know, they give you some special abilities, but I never use them. I always forget to use them because it's like a one-time use per day. There we go. Also, like, the lighting looks so good. I know this is Unreal Engine, and Unreal games can look really, really nice. Like, especially if they can, you know, get it working right and get it kind of like tweaked and everything. Like, Unreal games look really, really nice. And there's one thing I noticed that they do in this that I also noticed in the Outer Worlds. Whenever you initiate a conversation with someone, there's a little light that sort of illuminates their face, like sort of this little Rembrandt light that comes through. And that's a cool little effect that I always liked from Outer Worlds, because sometimes you'll talk to people in these areas that don't have great lighting, and it makes those character interactions feel a little bit more intimate. And they brought that over to this as well. It's a very subtle effect, but you'll notice it if you talk to a character in a dark area, where, for instance, like he's over here, and then boom, it illuminates his face. So then it has this really, you know, nice fill. You can even see there's like a catch light in his eye. This is my photo nerd leaking out here. And usually when we do a lot of these build videos, there's always sort of a theme, right? Today's theme, I really just kind of wanted to mess around. I really just wanted to build a PC, and I really just wanted to play some Oblivion. I've really got to make my way through this intro, which drags. Because look, come on guys, I thought like we had to save the Emperor. Don't you think there would be a little bit more of a hurry? They're just taking their time here. But performance across the board, I mean, I'm happy with the frames I'm getting. Again, for this type of game, I am at ultra settings with 4K and anything 60 plus, even the 1% lows, which are hitting 70 right now. And I know this is indoors. I might eat my words once I go outdoors, but this is perfectly fine. If you're hitting 60 at 4K, I am more than happy with this type of game. Those extra frames aren't doing much for me. And I've been playing this remote play on my Steam Deck too, and that locks it at 60 FPS anyway. And I'm playing on my couch and I think it looks great. A solid 60 looks magnificent. Competitor games, shooter games, those style of games, yes, I want my full 120, 144, 165, 240, whatever it is. I want that high frame rate, that high refresh rate for those competitive shooters because it just handles so much better. But for this feels really good. I'm really happy with this, and motion blur's off, so I'm happy with that too. All right, so they're gonna talk a little bit. They're gonna run out there, and I'll let them handle that. And then this guy's gonna have a really bad day. And you know, I'm standing right here. Like, I could save you. This always bothered me about this. Like, I could save you. Look, I can get him. No, he's gone. Although they did a special animation for that looks really good. Because I think in the original, it's just kind of a silly generic, like, animation. So there's these nice little touches that they added to really sort of modernize the game. I always like this guy because he's in the main quest too, and he does some pretty cool stuff. It's been a minute, but I think you go to like the Blades Monastery, you find Martin, you do like a bunch of chores, and then eventually Martin turns into a dragon. Spoiler alert. But I don't care. Like, I don't care that I already know how the game is going to play out because this just feels like a whole new experience to me. This looks so great. All right, I'm going to speed run my way through the sewers now because usually when I play these style of games, I take my time. I search every room, I search every nook and cranny, I loot as much as possible. But in this case, I'm not going to bother. And if I remember correctly, I think it's the Dark Brotherhood quest where you have to assassinate the guy who was in the cell across from you in the intro. You have to come back this way, which I always like that quest, like sneaking back into the Imperial sewers and finding your way back from where you started the game. And it unlocks some like new areas. I don't know what my class is. I don't know what my settings are. I'm just going to leave it. But I always liked that quest a lot because I always thought that was kind of a cool touch that, you know, you're sort of revisiting the starting area, except now you're a little bit more powerful. Oh, my character's name is Poop. Yeah, that's fitting. I really just made a throwaway character. All right, so here is the moment of truth. Now we're loading into the overworld, so to speak. Wow, that looks really pretty. Okay, and yes. 53 frame per second average, 20% lows. We definitely took a dip. Oh, mud crab. So this 5070, 12 gigabytes of VRAM, obviously, and that's nothing to ignore. Like that's pretty good, right? 12 gigs is still pretty good in this day and age. Like I think 1440 at ultra settings will do a lot better with this 5070, but I'm really just pushing it just because I can to hit 4K just to see what I can do with this combination. So in this case, I have a couple of different options. I can change to a different resolution, which I don't want to do. I can drop my graphical fidelity to high, which we could try, but also I don't really want to do that either. I kind of want to stubbornly keep the highest quality possible, because if I'm going to revisit this game, and that frame rate before, that's definitely giving me a throwback to playing this on my old Dell XPS like 410 I had forever ago, where I would get like choppy playback. This is better. Average FPS 76, 1% lows hitting 40s, 50s, 70. I mean, this is better, and it still looks really good. Like I can't say it doesn't look great, because it does look really good, but I really want those ultra settings back. So I'm gonna do something controversial, and I'm gonna turn on frame gen. I'm gonna set this to ultra. Frame gen on. Now, do I have to restart for this one? I guess let's see what happens. Whoa, okay. All right, we're looking better. FPS 87, 89, 1% lows in the 60s. It doesn't say, is this a 2x frame gen? I don't think it's a 4x. Obviously it's not 4x because I'd have 4 times the frames. But this definitely seems like a 2x. Whoa, look at that. Oh man, Oblivion, never change. What is that? What is happening to your pants? Yeah, that's not frame gen. That is Oblivion right there. All right, buddy. That's funny. Those kind of graphical glitches happen in Helldivers a lot too, actually, where it feels like an object is getting like pulled out of someone. Okay, so frame gen on, 4K, ultra settings, 90 FPS average, 100 FPS average, 1% lows in the 70s, definitely seeing some dips. Utilization on the GPU, 96, 97%. Utilization on the CPU, 26%. I mean, negligible. Like I said, that 9700X, perfect for gaming. So don't overlook those CPUs when it comes to gaming. Yes, the X3D chips are going to be great and you're going to get even more value out of them, but don't overlook these CPUs, especially if you're on a budget. I think even a 9600X I could pull off with this 5070, no issue. And even temps on this 9700X, 68, 67 degrees, so I'm pretty happy with that. Obviously, this isn't like a super high, crazy scientific test. I'm just sort of running around and seeing what frame rates look like. Let me run into Vilverin. This is like the first little instance right outside the sewer. I just want to see what frame rate looks like once you go back inside in a new area. There's gonna be some bandits in here. And then if you go deep in and find your way, you'll find I think a necromancer or a conjurer. But FPS, 118, 1% lows, 100. I mean, that's how this game always was. Once you go indoors, you get a really much better frame rate. And then once you go outdoors, it's, you know, a little bit more choppy. I mean, at least historically. Hiya! This, like, I know my acrobatics is only a little bit higher because I went with Thief, but like, this is so floaty. And I love how floaty it feels. Skyrim, your character felt too heavy. Like, you just felt like too, I don't know, like on the ground. And this one, I just feel like I can just jump and jump and jump all silly like. I could probably jump up here. Yep. Oh, I could jump up there. This is gonna be fun. But the performance is there, you know? I mean, would you consider this a AAA title? Is this like a bleeding edge of graphical fidelity? I don't know. I mean, this is just a reskin on top of an old game engine, right? Because this is a hybrid of, and I forget the name of the engine that Oblivion uses, and then Unreal Engine 5 on top of that. So, you know, would you call this a AAA title? Is this the bleeding edge? I mean, it has DLSS and frame gen and some of those other settings that not every game has available, so maybe the jury's out on that one. But the point being is that, you know, right out the box, performance here is looking really great. And I could try some other games. I could try Cyberpunk. I could try Black Myth Wukong. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting a little bit bored of those games, and I just wanted to try something that, this is a game I really love. And it sort of allows me to push, you know, graphically and performance-wise. I mean, 90, 85 FPS average, 1% lows, hitting 48, 50. Let me take another look at that frame gen. Automatic. Interesting. So, and then you have your FSR, you have your XeSS, NVIDIA Reflex. I don't really care about input latency, to be honest. Upscaling technique. So, yep, you could cycle through all of your usual suspects. Oh, I don't want FSR. DLSS is fine. Performance, ultra performance. All right, let's see what happens. And I'll keep frame gen on. Now there's the Lumen Hardware RT. Yeah, let's crank it, man. Let's just see what happens. I may be pushing this too hard, but I think it's worth trying. I'm gonna set this to high. Oh, whoops, did I change that? Yeah, everything's set, okay. Ooh, okay. Interesting. 110, 105, 90 FPS average, 1% lows, jumping all over 37, 40, 83. So between DLSS, that frame gen, and the ray tracing, I think this is kind of all over the place. I see some frame tearing going on right there. Yeah, I mean, our latency is like, what, 57? Yeah. I remember this from the old days because I had a really crappy LCD monitor like 20 years ago, and when you would look at the ground, you would see this effect too. This sort of wobbly frame tearing effect. But it was always when you like kind of look down while moving. What happens if I turn on VSync? It's still there a little bit. Get them crabs. There we go. Yeah, it's like this funny little stuttery effect there. I don't know which one's doing that. I don't know if that's like an AI artifact, a screen tearing thing, but I do remember this being something like 20 years ago. Maybe this is a Oblivion thing at this point. Hello, sir. I want to hear this guy.
I welcome a friendly face of these dark times. How can I be of assistance?
Wes Johnson. I'm sorry. Hey, this is the kind of stuff I love about Oblivion, and it always catches you off guard. I mean, look at this framing, right? Like the horses, and it's frozen too. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, this really takes me back, man. This is my kind of game. Games got so serious, and I think they lost this. I know this isn't an intended result for what they wanted for the final product with Oblivion, but this kind of silliness has been lost, and I feel like that's what a lot of modern games miss. Okay. Let me see if I can get another funny angle with the horse. Wait, don't turn away. Oh, there we go. Perfect angle right there. Let's have a full conversation. Oh my goodness. I mean, there you have it. That's Oblivion in a nutshell right there. So performance-wise, I'm pretty happy with this machine. This is a really, really good gaming PC. Performance across the board for other games, Cyberpunk, Black Myth, I mean, I could try them out, but I just know for a fact that it's going to run really well there. The 5070 is going to do you just fine. And especially if you don't mind using FrameGen or DLSS or any of those other settings to really get those extra frames, performance is there. Now, for Oblivion, 4K, ultra settings, I'm a happy camper. I would play this. I would still tweak this a little bit because I noticed there was that, I don't know what that was, frame tearing or whatever that was. So there's some adjustments I would make, but I would play this with this setup, with this PC, and I would play this for hours on end. So what would you play on a PC like this? Are you big into Oblivion? Because I've been talking about it for a while. Or would you play something else? I mean, let me know in the comments below. And make sure you stop by your local microcenter because you can get a gaming PC as awesome as this. And don't forget, we also have the keyboards, the mice, all of the monitors that you'd want for the ultimate gaming setup. So make sure you stop by your local microcenter. And if you don't have a microcenter near you, then be sure to comment hashtag I want a microcenter near me.